Dan.
And what's going on, Los Angeles? Happy Sunday to everybody. A victory Sunday if you're a Trojan, a Black Sunday if you're a Bruin, but always thrilled to be here. As promised, the LA Football Network, our very special once-a-year Victory Bell podcast series concludes, of course, with the post-game reaction. And I have my esteemed gentleman above me over here, our Trojan in residence, Coach Alfred Rowe, and our Bruin in residence, Will the Thrill Decker. Guys, how we doing today? Coach, I'll start with you. Just how we doing really quickly before we get into the game?
Oh, man, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. The Victoryville is home from vacation. It's been a long 365 days. Other than that, I'm doing well. No complaints. I mean, as good as I could be. The season's a wash, so I guess we just keep moving forward and look forward to the bowl game.
Thrill, how we doing?
We're doing all right. It was a tough game last night, but UCLA with everything they had going, they just didn't deserve to win. And you got to just look yourself in the mirror if you're UCLA fans and just go, where do we go from here? And how can we improve? There's just a lot of areas of concern, and I just don't feel like a lot of them were addressed. So we're going to have a fun Sunday and recap the game, and excited to do that.
Well, thanks so much, guys. And let's recap.
How are you doing, Madman?
We're doing okay, man. Doing okay. It was fun last night, actually. You know, I was there with Pops. I was there with my buddy Ash. I was there with a couple other buddies. Auspiciously enough, I ran into Jen Cohen and Martin Jarman like 15 minutes before kickoff. The two of them had their sort of customary hug and handshake. Very friendly, I must say. It's a lot of friends in the athletic department across both schools. Contrary to what the rivalry would suggest, a lot of catching up over there. But it was fun to be there, fun atmosphere, and excited to break it down with you guys. Well, guys, it's we'll start with sort of the recap, right? And and then I'll kick it over to you guys and we'll sort of really dive in. But kind of a weird game. I mean, I don't know if historically anyone is going to remember this particular edition of the Victory Bell as a work of art, but another one is in the books. Really kind of interesting ebbs and flows to this game. Obviously, the game started. UCLA got the ball on the opening series. Moved the ball a little bit. TMA got very involved on that first series. And then the first kind of interesting play there where Easton Mascarenas-Arnold came off of Ethan Garbers' blind side. UCLA down to their fourth string left tackle on that side. EMA comes off of that blind side and hits Garbers as he's throwing it. Initially ruled a fumble, later reviewed as an incomplete pass. Enabled Mateen Bagani to kick a booming 51-yard field goal. UCLA off and running 3-0. And then the rest of the first half felt like it was absolutely dominated by USC. There was a beautiful 64-yard pass, Coach Maeva to Makai Lemon, your guy, that got into UCLA's red zone. Later, Maeva also had a really nice throw, I thought, to Lake McCree for 29 yards that set up another red zone series. But overall, USC gets to UCLA's not just red zone, but 5-yard line 3 times. First and goal at the 5, first and goal at the 2, first and goal at the 4, and comes up 0 for 3 in terms of touchdowns. Combination, I think, of really nice UCLA defense, along with some very questionable Coach, I don't know about the officiating. I think it was some very questionable decision-making and play calling by both Lincoln Riley and Maeva. Fade after fade, halfback dive after halfback dive. It got very predictable. And so that enabled SC to go in 9-3 at the half when it felt like it should have been a lot more. And then right before we get into the locker room, a pretty massive scuffle breaks out, as you would expect in this rivalry game. And we were all sitting there and watching it, expecting it to be sort of offsetting penalties. and the referees just kept saying UCLA players, and UCLA had to kick off from their own 5-yard line to start the second half. SC gets again midfield, but then the game turned. SC 4th and 3. Maeva tries to find Jacoby Lane high and away. Lane could have snared that in, drops it, and then off and running we go with UCLA, and it became the J. Michael Sturdivant show for a while there, as Will and I have been hoping for the last couple of years. Deep ball to Sturdy, and then an inside screen pass to Maliki Matavao. UCLA takes a 10-9 lead, a stop, and then follows that up with a really nice screen pass to Harden, another deep ball to Sturdivant that makes it 13-9, and then we sort of get into the fourth quarter, 9 minutes to go, and I think that's where it was sort of the key sequence in my mind. I thought the key sequence really was when UCLA had the ball 1st and 10 at their own 1-yard line with about 9.5 minutes to go, up 13-9. Garbers finds Sturdivant deep again to kind of get UCLA out of trouble. And then I thought the USC defense did a phenomenal job, really went 3 and out from there. Those next 3 plays, UCLA couldn't get another first down, shanked the punt. And then after a Woody Marks run, the play that sort of changed the game, the trick play, Lincoln finally went to his bag of tricks. And the pass by Makai Lemon to Kyron Hudson, I think really stunned this UCLA defense. The very next play, Maeva improvises, finds Lane on a juggling catch, 16-13. UCLA gets the ball back, 2 short yardage situations, gets stuffed. You think that's the end of the game. SC can't close it out, has to kick another field goal. And then UCLA gets the ball with 2:09 to go. An opportunity perhaps for sort of an epic ending of this game. And the drive doesn't really get started. 4 consecutive incompletes for Ethan Garbers. USC kneels it out, victory formation, 19-13, and here we go. So that was sort of ultimately kind of the recap. Lots to unpack there. Coach, I'll go to you. To the victor go the spoils. So we'll kick it off with you. You talked a lot in the pregame show, but, it backed up here. USC gets the win. What are your impressions? What did you like? What didn't you like? And what do you take away from this game? Coach, you're on mute, by the way.
I do that at work too. I didn't talk a lot. I just stated the facts. Like when you really think about it, Ethan Garbers had 9 incompletions and he came away with a loss, right? Michael Sturdivant, UCLA better figure out how to come up with some money to keep that guy there. If he's not a senior, other than that, he's going to hit the portal and somebody's going to pay him a lot of money to be their receiver on their team. He's really good. I'm not going to take anything away from that receiver. He makes very big catches. He knows how to get open. Like that's a very good kid. And he has a lot of pro potential, but neither here nor there. The thing that I do like about SC is we finally saw complete football in the fourth quarter. We saw legit offense. We saw legit defense. We saw legit special teams. That's what I've been looking to see all year from this team. I sound as bad as Lincoln Riley, but if we play like that all year, we'll probably be a 1-loss, 2-loss team talking about where do we go in the playoff, right? So that fourth quarter of complete football was great. I will say this. And this is just my opinion from what I see. Oh, one thing I do want to correct. The officiating I was going to say is when Lake McCree ran into the umpire in the end zone. I have to think and I have to go back and look, but I don't remember ever seeing an umpire in the end zone when you're on the 5 and in. I always thought they were on the back line. I have to go look back and see, but I really think he was out of position. That kind of cost us a touchdown, but neither here nor there. That's what I meant by the officiate. I mean, throughout the whole game, I think they called the game really well. Like I thought it was fairly called. Both of the corners were all four of the corners could not really cover to save their life, and they were just grabbing. And there was no PIs called, so you can't really complain about the officiating that way. I was just talking about the umpire being in the way, but I will say this. I think Lincoln Riley got a little bit ahead of himself, and you saw a lot of Cliff Kingsbury last night. And when I say that is, you could tell that they still talk and they're trying to implement some pro stuff. How awkward did Maeva look under center last night when he was on the goal line? I might be in the minority with saying I wasn't upset with his play calls. If you watch every game today, you're going to see the same sequence. You're going to see first down, second down run. You're going to see third down play action. And that's exactly what Lincoln Riley did. The problem is that It was the same first down run, same second down play action, same third down play action, had to kick the field goal. There was no mix up in it, and it was all the same play. I did like the sprint out that they did down there. I think that play with other combinations too will be very successful with Mailata. So I wasn't mad with the play call. I was mad with that it was the same play call all 3 times down there. That's been an issue with SC all year, that they can't score in the red zone, right? They're like one of the worst teams scoring in the red zone and things like that. But when it's all said and done, I said it, the better team will win. The SC played better for a longer period of time. They were the better team. Like, altogether, it was an ugly win, but they were just better than UCLA at that point. The score actually should have been 28-13, 10-point win, but they just couldn't score down in the red zone. I will say this. I do feel bad for UCLA in this case, and I'm taking UCLA's side because I'm all for the rivalry being great. I think Deshaun Foster's out of his league. I think Deshaun Foster does not have control over his coaching staff and over his – I would just say over the coaching staff. When you have to make SC get another first down, and then you have to burn a timeout on a crucial fourth down to either flip the game or not, regardless of that, at least take the delay of game and then try again, and then make them get another first down because you have a timeout and you have the ability to stop the clock. I think that was just blown, and I think Deshaun Foster has no control over Eric Bieniemy. And I could be wrong. But that's just what I saw from last night's game. And I think that was the most crucial moment. Make Lincoln Riley get another first down to really beat you. And they blew it right there. I think that was the game turning point. I think Foster's a little bit over his head. I think he needs to get people around him that understand the game, but is also going to make him become a better head football coach. I don't think that's what's going on right now. I think I know more than you because I'm Eric Bieniemy and I have Super Bowls. Just listen to what I'm doing instead of saying, hey, look, this is how we should do it. This is what I would do in this situation. Look, next time maybe we should do this and do that. More of a mentor more than I'm just going to go and do my own thing. So that's just how I see it. But overall, the game wasn't great. I don't think, like you said, I don't think we'll ever remember this game. We won't tell our grandkids about it. But SC's going bowling. I mean, the season's all for naught. Fourth quarter, we had the only complete quarter I've seen in a very long time. The only thing is we have to take this and carry it into 2025.
Yeah, no, Coach, a really good point. And I'll circle back with you here. But Thrill, what did you see? What did you like? What was tough for you to see? Obviously on the other end, but would love to kind of get your synopsis.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think if you really break it down holistically, I thought Lincoln Riley coached a very bad game. I mean, you went to the red zone 5 times and came away with 1 touchdown. And you look at the stats. I mean, who was the leading passer in this game? It was Garbers. Who was the leading rusher? I don't think anyone had this. TJ Harden led the game in rushing. J. Mike, coming from that back of the milk cart. We haven't seen this guy in months. It's like seeing Puxatawny Phil out there with the Groundhog's Day. Like, when he comes out, he has his moment, and then he retreats for another year. We just don't get to see it that often. J. Mike was locked in. So you had the leading receiver, rusher, and passer in this game. You get 3 stops in the red zone in the first half. You're first and goal on all of these plays. You force field goals. You got to be feeling pretty good about yourself. The sequence where the game went wrong, you're up 10-9. You drive into the red zone yourself. We have the false start on the first-time starter. I mean, this guy didn't even play football in high school. Yutaka Mahe gets the false start, and then Nate Clifton comes in with the sack on the very next play. So, I mean, if you punch in a touchdown on that, red zone stretch, you're up 17-9. You're firmly in the driver's seat. You can see what happens. To be honest, it hurts because I actually don't think USC is the better football team. I actually just think UCLA, just to how bad this coaching staff has been throughout the year and making in-game adjustments and kind of figuring it out. I would actually think, from what I saw, I think UCLA had every right to win this game, and they just completely blew it. 3 of 11 on third downs. We've talked about this over the course of a season. 0 for 3 on those fourth downs, including that Garbers keep it at the end of the game in a critical moment. Just a lot went wrong for UCLA out there, man. And I mean, don't even get me started on the penalties. I mean, you just can't put yourself in those positions. That stuff before the halftime, I know it's a rivalry game. I know people get heated. We're lucky that didn't cost UCLA seriously because they were able to force a punt out of that. I mean, you're kicking from your 5-yard line. I've never seen that in college football. You know what I mean? What the hell is that if you're a UCLA fan? You know, the fall starts, 8 penalties, 65 yards. If discipline is one of Deshaun Foster's pillars moving forward, it needs to be corrected because this team led the Big Ten in penalties this year. It's just a fact. Discipline is not one of the strong suits, despite being one of your pillars. You got to figure it out. So I think from a lot of standpoints, UCLA had them right where they wanted them. I got to give credit to KJ Wallace, played outstanding, 3.5 tackles for a loss, made some big plays. Femi was doing Femi things back there. Devin Alpue forced that fumble, made a sack. Schlesinger just, cleaning up plays at will. The defense, I think, played very, very well. If you break it down, it was just the little things that really affected UCLA. And oftentimes in life, it's the little things that can make or break success. So that's exactly what happened for UCLA.
Yeah, Will, no, it's a great point. And, Will, I'll stick it with you here before I go back to Coach. A couple of key moments there. Obviously, you said 10-9, I think 13-9. Those were the two moments, and the conventional wisdom could say, hey, UCLA is upset about their kind of first and goal at the 4 opportunity. SC had 3 first and goal at the 5 opportunities as well, right? So it kind of balances out there. What did you think about the play calling? I thought it was sort of interesting. J. Mike got going. I think, in the second half, all of his big plays were all in the second half. There was really nothing down the field. I think Bieniemy made the emphasis where he wanted to get the ball out quickly. But I thought, again, we saw Sturdivant, Logan Loya 1 catch. And again, Keegan Jones, wasn't involved in a game that I think could have really mattered, particularly down the stretch there. Could UCLA have done a little bit more in terms of misdirection, getting Keegan more involved? It felt very predictable at the end of that game. And I think SC was able, to their credit, lock in on those habits. And really, it felt like a slog at the end of that game. And I think it made Garbers feel like he had to really be pinpoint, even more so than normal. I think of on that last drive, Will, he had that ball to Matavao that he just sort of short hop that could have been that first down of that drive to kind of get it going. Really ironic that Garbers actually started the second half 11 for 11 until that final series where it went 4 incomplete passes. So, Will, tell me a little bit about kind of the play calling in your mind and the overall offense a little bit.
I thought it was confusing, if I'm being honest, because when you really break it down, the amount of run calls compared to pass calls in the first half alone. I mean, this team is, we know who we are at this point. We got 1 game remaining. This is the rivalry game. You got to know who you are. This is one of the worst rushing teams in the country. And I know Harden had some great plays, and I think the majority of his yardage came on those 2 big runs. But you take those 2 big yard gains from Harden away, and you're averaging less than 2.5 yards a carry on this. And I'm not saying USC is great at run defense, but that's just the way it is, right? I thought we abandoned our identity. I mean, I go back to even the red zone. You get the false start, you get Nate Clifton on a sack, so it's like 2nd and long. You try a draw play to Keegan Jones when it's like you're in the goal. You got to keep it rolling there. You got to have your eyes on the prize and go for the jugular at that point. You're up 10-9. You got a chance to score a touchdown. Draw play, Keegan gets a yard. It's now 3rd and 15 in the goal. I just hated that play call in the moment. Hated everything about it. I mean, yeah, dude. I mean, I think Sturdivant kind of supplanted Loya in this game just because he was the guy making plays. But I never like a recipe for success when the people that we've talked about, whether it's Matavao and Logan Loya, 3 catches combined for 24 yards. Obviously, Matavao had that touchdown. But those are the best hallmark receivers we've had there. And UCLA wide receivers, talented ones at that, they've got every issue to have a lot of gripes with this coaching staff because, man, these are some guys that can flat out play and they're just not receiving their targets or catches. So I think a lot deserves to be blamed on, Bieniemy and his style of play calling. I was sympathetic to him early in the season, when it came down to it, just because I just felt the offensive line was one of the worst in Power 5, period. But now it's to a point where they've got to reevaluate everything. This was a game you had within your grips. It just felt like the same old story, man. It was tough to watch. UCLA put themselves in a position to win, more total yards, more rushing yards, more receiving, and just didn't come away with a W. And you got to point yourself and, figure out what exactly that was if you're the UCLA coaching staff and team today.
Yeah, Coach.
Madman, real quick. I have to address something. Hey, you guys. So this is the LAFB combined show. Will Decker is the Bruin Bible host. I'm the Salute to Troy host. So we're doing a Victory Bell show. He's not a Salute to Troy guy. The comments are a little confused. Just straighten that out. Sorry about that. Go ahead, man. I apologize.
Coach, I'll go to you here. Tell me about, you said a couple of interesting things breaking down the game that I think let's unpack a bit. One is you talked a lot about the play calling in the red zone, and that you liked it. Now, you referred to the play action. I personally didn't see a lot of play action in the red zone. I saw a lot of fade routes where Maeva kind of premeditated where he wanted to go. And I think there was a lack of air on those balls that he really didn't give the SC receivers a chance. So how did you sort of, do you still think that's sort of a recipe for success moving forward? And B, tell me how would you sort of give Maeva an overall grade in this game? Obviously we kind of had the full Maeva experience, just about some good, perhaps some things to work on. How do you feel about Maeva after 2 starts and after last night in particular?
Yeah, so if you remember, man, you're talking about the fades actually. Maeva threw him right. It's the receivers that are an issue at SC. When you really think about it, he threw all back shoulder fades and that were in the perfect spot. It's just Jacoby Lane tried to one-hand the back shoulder fade. If he would have turned around and caught it with both hands, that would have been a touchdown. Even the one in the back of the end zone, he tried to put it at the pylon. The placement was right. You also have to remember, and you also have to remember that the timing with these guys aren't going to be on par. This is what their 3rd week of practicing with each other. It looks like that. It looks like game 2 or 3 of the start of the season. That's exactly what it looked. There's a little receiver issue that's going on that I'm not happy with, and I think they're getting Jacoby Lane isn't playing up to his standard, right? The Jacoby Lane that you expected out of him and that was supposed to happen, it's not happening. Jacoby Lane turns around on that back shoulder fade at the corner of the pylon and uses both hands. Touchdown. Easy touchdown. So, and I'll explain it to you. If you're throwing a true fade, you put air under it so you could get to the back of the pylon and only gets it. You throw back shoulder fade, it's more of a one ball, which is on a straight line, and you want to put it either at the outside hand or at the near hip, which he was doing. So that's why after Maeva was throwing it, he was a little frustrated. He's like, what are you guys doing? Like, I'm giving you the ball where you're supposed to get it. So I would stay with that. I will still say that Maeva is still a project. And the benefit of this being a project is that he had some classwork. He had a pop quiz he had a pop quiz last night. Next week is the test, right? You're going to play a college football playoff team, and you're going to see how good you really are, right? It's not the end of the world if he doesn't get a good performance. You know why? Because he gets a spring ball, he gets a fall camp, and now he really gets to gel with these guys and really gets to be really good, and we get to see him next year in the production work. What I can see right now is you do see some things that there's upsides to, right? He's not afraid to sling it, right? He legit has an arm. He puts some balls out there. You're like, oh, that's nice. You know what I mean? The thing that worries me is that he's trying to be Caleb, and that's not his identity. And his Caleb is a little bit, it's a little scary. Like, you see it and you're like, put the ball away, like, or just throw it away. So I'm not, and I'm kind of like you. This is all for next year, right? So, I mean, he's not terrible. Bunch of upside. So I like to see how he is. I like to see how he does next week. And, the first 2 games of next year, we'll get a good idea of what we're really going to see. And then on the goal line, let me address the goal line. The under center stuff was play action. And when he sprint out, they did do play action off of it. It was like a little pro style to it. So I know what you're talking about, though. The back shoulder fade that he threw at Jacoby Lane in the end zone, which was a great throw. That's how it's taught to be thrown. And the third one, yes, it was all fades and everything like that. And I think that's more Lincoln and not Maeva, because Lincoln's trying to get the fade out right away and trying to get a big play instead of just, how Lincoln get, like, go back to what you do. Go back to the well, like, make it work. You know what I mean? So it's that's where I thought of it. It's not.
Coach, I'll stick with you here on this final piece. Obviously, you're a defensive guy. And so what did you see out of the defense that you really liked? You talked about the fourth quarter being, kind of gut check time for the Trojans. I agree with you. For everything that was at stake, I thought that was culturally, holistically, one of the best quarters of football that SC played all year in terms of all three phases of the game, right? I mean, they were able to pin UCLA deep to the 1 yard line with the great punting. They had, the three consecutive great stops defensively. And then the offense finally kind of came through and punched one in with, the trick play led by Lemon. I mean, frankly, Coach, I'll be very honest with you, who had Makai Lemon as the best quarterback in this game on their bingo card? I mean, that's, is where it sort of ended out. But tell me what you saw schematically or effort from the defense that you really liked.
So I think the problem with the defense comes from coaching. And we talked about this on one of our earlier shows, how all the defensive coaches are down on the field. So when you stand down on the field at the coaching level, not at the end of the end zone, when you're between those two 25-yard boxes and you are at the play, you can't see what's happening on the other side, right? If you're in a box 300 feet above everybody, you get to see the whole play. The fact is that they make adjustments based off of everything that they gathered from the first half, right? And we're seeing sometimes the game gets out of control and the adjustments are too late. Compared to where you legit have a guy like, hey, the guy on the opposite side is running too far upfield. You can make that adjustment right now instead of looking at a tablet like, oh, that play. You have nobody tracking the play down. Where's the mistake and things like that, which you could all track down in the box. So that's why there was such a complete flip between the first half. The first half, it looked like, oh man, this is gonna be bad. I was like, Decker's gonna be on my ass. I was like, the Decker's gonna be on my ass. And then all of a sudden, you get to the second half, and it's like, damn, where's this defense come from? Because they were able to make every single adjustment. They're not making in-game adjustments; they're making halftime adjustments. I think in order to succeed, you have to make in-game adjustments. So, I mean, it's just those are the things that I think that's why you're like, and you can't cover it all. You can't cover it all in between series, right? You can only get through so much in between series, even though you got a timeout for college football is about 5 minutes longer than a timeout, a change of possession for high school football because there's no TV timeouts. So the in-game adjustments needs to happen a lot faster than halftime adjustments, and that's why you see such a drastic thing. So I think it's more of they need guys upstairs to make those adjustments or tell them what's happening right now, or you're able to track that stuff than having the whole defensive staff on the field and you can't see what's happening on the other side during that play.
Yep. No, Coach, two things before Thrill, I'll go back to you. One is to the Maeva point. I agree with you. There was some play action, Coach, but not as much as you saw. I saw it sort of.
It was
play
only
out
like
a
two
little
plays.
bit
It was like two. It
was like there was only kind of two play action plays.
Yeah.
I love the arm strength of Maeva. I mean, I think you saw that again. I think the ball to Lemon was spectacular. That incomplete ball to Ford was probably one of his best throws, and then the ball to McCree to set up that second field goal was absolutely terrific. Then you also saw some of the questionable decision making. He was able to jam a ball into McCree that you thought Medrano actually came up with as an interception. There was sort of the fumble. He was scrambling a little bit, but he was also sort of scrambling without necessarily a lot of intent. And I think that's also where I think the Trojan family is trying to understand who is Maeva. Is Maeva a running quarterback, or is Maeva athletic enough to run to extend the play to be able to throw? I think it's more the latter. But I think he needs to still be able to sort of refine his progressions to be able to really be able to exploit that skill. So I agree with you. He's a project. Coach, to me, next week going into Notre Dame, the big thing I'm going to be looking for is the clock, because I think the clock in his head is still too slow. It's a group of 5 clock, and I think he's been able to get away with it with Nebraska and UCLA and had some sort of good fortune with the ball bounce his way a bit. And let's see if now with 2 starts under his belt, that clock starts getting faster, because that's really where the QB development works is that clock getting faster. And number 2, Coach, I thought there got to a point in this game late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter, where it felt like everybody on the field knew that the USC defensive line was going to win the battle with the UCLA offensive line. I think both sides kind of saw it, which is sort of ironic, right? Remember what we talked about going in. We said, It's the team that can't sack anybody against the team that can't block anybody. And ultimately, the USC defensive line, I think, won that matchup convincingly. And I think what it did was it allowed to pack more in the box. But I think it also allowed those corners a lot of freedom to be able to sort of play closer up and feel like, they were going to get home on the Garbers and not really get burned on the back end as a result. So I thought, again, the power of being able to win in the trenches and the trickle-down effect that it has over the course of this game. Thrill, I'm going to go to you. Holistically, what you saw, where do the Bruins go from here in your mind? I mean, how do you see kind of next week play out? And then how do you also kind of see this play out in the offseason a bit? How would you sort of overall now grade this season with one game to play?
Yeah, I think you got to give it just a raw, honest score. I can't go above a D on this season in any way. You needed a bowl game in year one for Deshaun. It was on the table, and it just didn't come. And, I think for a lot of different guys, we've talked about it, how many guys are leaving this program next year? I mean, that is the mothership that is covering the sun right now when it comes to UCLA football. No Garbers, so you got to have a new quarterback in there. You're losing all of the fearsome foursome, whether it's Femi, whether it's Toia, who is amazing as always. Kane Madrano has been a stalwart within this program. Schwessinger. And you also want to talk about that entire receiving room that felt like it was one of the most talented within the history of UCLA. Loya's going to be gone. Sturdy's gone. TMA, I'm not 100% sure on his eligibility, but it feels like it's at the near end if it is coming back. So, yeah, you got Quasi coming back in that regard, but it's not great. I think for UCLA to be successful in the Deshaun Foster era, they drastically needed a bowl game in year one, and they just didn't get it done. You could point the fingers. I mean, they had the toughest 4-game stretch in college football this year. Indiana, Oregon, at Penn State, at LSU. That sounds like you're playing career mode on NCAA football. Like, it's insane. So just a lot of different things went wrong with UCLA, and they got to look themselves in the mirrors. Like, if this is really going to work moving forward, I mean, year two with not a lot coming back, what can you guys provide that can give the fan base some hope? Because I know I'm tapped into a lot of these UCLA circles as you are. A lot of the fans are kind of, disgruntled right now as it stands. What does that mean, losing to USC and then getting out there and trying to get to a bowl game in year, two? So I don't foresee a happy ending here if it goes on this trajectory, unless if some major changes are made.
Well, Charles would have won that game. I'm just saying, Charles would have won last night.
I mean, dude, Chip Kelly. I mean, what I keep telling you, man, is it boils down to the timing of it. Like, Chip and UCLA were just not a match when it came down to. I personally don't have a lot of issues with Chip Kelly. I was kind of in the middle on that thing, but it was clear that he just didn't want to do those small things to be a successful head coach of the NIL era. You know what I mean? I think he worked the transfer portal, and I mean, the dude is an offensive coordinator now. Like, he doesn't even want any part of being a head coach. This is not like a guy that left and is like leading a program on his own. He just didn't want to put up with the shit that comes with being a head coach in the modern era today. So, like, yeah, I would have felt a lot more confident if Chip Kelly was out there last night, 100%. But if he leaves in like a normal timeline where we don't beat USC last year, ironically, that's like the Achilles heel of this entire thing, right? He beats USC last year, and they swept under the rug like two of the worst losses I've ever seen as someone that's covered UCLA. And maybe we're talking about, as I've often stated, like a Jed Fish. Maybe we're talking about one of these other guys, Jonathan Smith. He's born in Pasadena. Maybe you want to come there. So, yeah, it was the timing of Chip leaving. I don't think it was, we screwed up royally by not bringing Chip back. I think that's kind of my stance on the matter. But, yeah, I forgot what was the follow-up question.
No, Will. No. You said it great. On a positive note, give me your sort of offensive MVP, defensive MVP of the game yesterday.
Offensive MVP, I think it's got to be Sturdivant, man.
Yeah.
The amount of big-time catches this guy makes. You're like going, where the hell was this? It's unbelievable. This guy pops up once every like 4 or 5 months, and he looks like the freaking boogeyman on the football field. And then we just don't hear him for another 4 to 5 months. I've never had a relationship with a player like this where he's so clearly talented, so unbelievably good. And to kind of, talk a little bit more about this. I don't think I'm speaking out of school.
Please.
I had Darren Chiavarini on the show last year. Former NFL wide receiver, went to Colorado.
What up, Chev? I know Chevarini.
Yeah. He's a UCLA offensive analyst under Chip. And we were kind of talking, and he's like, dude, this guy is – listen, I've been in some receiver rooms. I've been with Michael Irvin. I've done all these things. And he was like, this kid is as talented as any receiver I've seen at the college level. He's like, it's just going to be a matter of like, how can we get him the ball and how frequently can we do that? And ironically, that's been the thing that's held him back completely. So, yeah, I mean, it's breathtaking to watch this guy play football, and we don't get to see a lot of it. And I think UCLA fans have every right to question, why is this not, why are we not doing this more? I mean, if you saw that 30-yard fade route you're at the 1 yard line, I mean, what a phenomenal catch. The deep ball, you're going, hey, I'd like more of this. Like, this is not something like, it's not like a dessert where you can eat it and you can just.
And those were balls, Will, that he was getting. I mean, those were not just like dropping in the breadbasket. I mean, he was going and getting those balls with the catch radius, leaving his feet, having no fear about impact on the ground. It's he's going to go down as maybe the most perplexing offensive player in the history of UCLA football in terms of what could have been and what actually ended up happening from a production standpoint, to your point.
Philosophically, this is not like a stretch. Like, if good things are happening, keep doing the good things.
Right.
That's all I got to say to you. Like, it makes no sense at all. So, yeah, I think that he's the offensive MVP. KJ Wallace, man, when it comes to the defensive side of the football, 3.5 tackles for a loss from a safety. I mean, he had that huge tackle on Woody Marks behind the line of scrimmage.
That's number 7.
Yep.
KJ, he's a former Notre Dame and Georgia Tech transfer, and I mean, he's got a nice reel of film as we roll in the draft season now, because he's not going to be back either, right? So you got to completely rebuild this team. I know they started the portal a little earlier this year. They got the receiver from Arkansas, which is, a nice little pickup there. But, man, I would implore Juan Castillo and everybody else, trench work. Go to sleep, wake up the next morning, trench work. This offensive line was an abomination this year. Figure it out if you want any semblance of being a good football team, because you had no run game where your head coach, maybe the best running back the program's ever had in some people's opinions, and Eric Bieniemy was an NFL running back in his own right. How is that possible when the head coach and the offensive coordinator, two established running backs in their own merit, can't get a run game going all year long?
Fun fact. I mean, Eric Bieniemy was a Heisman runner-up at CU.
Yeah, I was about to say he was and a national champion.
Yes.
Coached up Adrian Peterson. Like he's a. How do we not have a run game with that? Riddle me that.
Well, as we're riddling you with that, Will, Coach, over to you. Kind of same questions. Who was your offensive MVP from a USC perspective? Who was your defensive MVP? And where do you think, in your eyes, Coach, that the game changed? Or was it always sort of on SC's racket and it was a matter of execution? Where did you think the game changed? And if you didn't think the game changed necessarily early, when did you start getting worried in the game?
Well, when I got worried because I sent the text out.
Should we put these text messages out on you? Yeah.
So
guy abandoned ship faster than the freaking Titanic crew. I mean, it was.
It was a factual statement, and you legit saw it in that third quarter. And we know that SC isn't the tough guys in this rivalry anymore. And then all of a sudden, you turn into these tough guys, and you're trying to fight or whatever, and then you get out of it with all the 15-yard penalties, like, bro. And now you give them the upper hand, like. I don't have to say anything to you. I know I'm tougher than you, and I'm going to show you I'm tougher than you when we get out of half. And for you guys doing that, you're going to pay the price. And you saw it in the third quarter. But the only thing is that SC is just better. It's a better team, right? And I think people might say fractions or minimal or whatever like that. But the old saying, Pete Carroll, better teams play better for longer periods of time. And there was periods of times where SC played better longer. And they were able to get down into the red zone 4 or 5 times, right? UCLA got down into the red zone, I think, twice. There's a whole complete difference of that. If SC executes this game, it's a completely different score in the whole ball game. There's 28 points easily put up. Maybe a couple of field goals, right? Let's just say because they came out slow after halftime, you put a field goal up. There's another 3 points. So you take You just take a touchdown off of that. But you're still looking at a 20-point game to UCLA's maybe 10, 13. They still probably scored 13, 2 field goals and a touchdown, because that was a great screen call at the time by Bieniemy. But SC was just the better team, and everybody jumped on me when I said that. I'm like, they're a better team. Like, UCLA got hot, and then reality set back in. Like, you got to come back to earth. Like, you guys have to. But I will say this. I thought the game turned at halftime. I legit thought, and I'll say it, I don't care. I legit thought that UCLA was going to run away with this game the way they played after the third quarter, because some soft guys tested their wheel. We know that SC's not a tough team, and we know that because the head coach does not make them a tough team. But I will say it flipped back in the fourth quarter, and I just think that they were just better. And that's when SC plays a complete game. When SC plays a complete game, that's the product you get, right? If we got that for the whole season, like I said, the conversation is different. There was a complete game in the fourth quarter, maybe because there was a rivalry, maybe because it finally clicked, maybe because of this, maybe because of that. But at the end of the day, just them playing a complete game. We needed to play when we needed it, and we were able to accomplish it. So the third quarter, I thought it was flipped to UCLA. I thought it was going to lose. I legit told y'all, SC tried to play tough guy. Now we about to get our ass kicked. And then, but the fourth quarter, they came out and played all 3 phases really well. And I thought it flipped back to USC. But I will tell you this, and I will mention it again. UCLA still should have had a chance. And when they were on that 4th down conversion in the fourth quarter, and they had 1 timeout left, and they had to burn that timeout, and then SC didn't have to get a first down again in order to keep the game, in order to kill the game, I think that changed a lot of outcome of the game too. I don't know what happened. I don't know how they messed that up, but that's something you just don't mess up. That's a timeout you don't burn in that situation. You have to make SC get another first down. So those are my opinions from that game.
Coach, offensive MVP, defensive MVP.
Offensive MVP is, I'm going to go with my favoritism. I'm going to go with Makai Lemon. He played a hell of a game.
Yeah, he did. Welcome to Salute to Troy, Will. You know, this Coach, you got to remember something, and the fans know all of it, and the fans love us, and it's a love-hate relationship with Coach sometimes. Alfred Rowe is like an Indian restaurant. I've always said this. Okay, you can go and order what you want on the menu. They will give you what they feel like. Okay, so we can ask Coach any question we want. Coach is going to give us what he wants, you know, so.
You didn't even ask me on offensive, defensive MVP. You asked me when the game changed.
I asked offensive MVP and when the game changed. You can go back and check the tape.
I apologize.
It was this like 5-minute spiel, and Madman just nodding. He's like, offensive and defensive MVP. Yeah.
That's why it's all love. All love on LA.
Oh, no, there's nothing to apologize about, bro.
Yeah.
I have part-time CTE, and that was the part-time I had CTE. So, offensive MVP, Makai Lemon, I think he had a great game. Threw for a great pass, had big catches. The defensive MVP, can I give it to a group? I think that front four played really well.
Yeah.
I'll give it to the front four. And those freshmen are coming. I hope Lincoln Riley doesn't mess this up. Those freshman defensive linemen are coming. I don't know if it's because the talent is lesser, but I hope those freshmen really, really get good and they really get going.
Yeah, Coach, last thing I want to say on that point is in terms of the wide receiver group, feels like even though Lane caught the touchdown and he was sort of the target on one fade route and then that 4th down play at the start of the third quarter, you know, he still only had 1 catch for 4 yards. Branch, again, was kind of 2 catches for 13 yards. Feels like Maeva is more comfortable with Lemon and Deuce. It feels like kind of those are his 2 guys. And then he also kind of looked to McCree. Is that what you're seeing as well? I think we're starting to see Lemon separate a little bit. I'm not ready to declare Lemon wide receiver 1. I know we've been sort of on the cusp of wide receiver 1. I don't know if this team has a wide receiver 1, to be honest with you. I think Lemon is ahead of the rest of the group, to your point. And so in that regard, your guy is ahead. But again, even Lemon, outside of the one big play, you know, there wasn't much there, you know, in terms of getting the ball. But it does feel like he's more comfortable with Deuce, who had 1 catch, but it was a contested one. And then Lemon with his 2 catches. How are you seeing this wide receiver group kind of shake out going into the offseason? I mean, are we going to see kind of more of a pecking order? Do you foresee perhaps anybody transferring? How are you seeing this thing play out?
I don't see anybody transferring. I think everybody stays. I don't think there will ever be a star wide receiver with this class. And the reason why I say that is I think they're all good in their own ways. And there will be games where Lemon doesn't get a catch and Jacoby Lane goes for 160. There'll be a game where Jacoby and Lemon doesn't get a catch and Deuce just shows out and we're like, oh, where does this Deuce come from? You know what I mean? The same thing with Mekhi Lemon. And if, I think Hudson's a junior, right? So he has one more year. Hudson might have a game like that. And so I think this is a group that complements each other. And I legit think that this is a group that's happy with each other. And I think they really do all want to see each other's success. Like you don't see frustration with each other. So I think this total group will never have a complete wide receiver one, but I think this total group will become really, really good next season.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say, Coach, is I think that's a fair assessment. I want to see it sort of play out a little bit more in terms of I have a feeling one of these guys is going to transfer. That's
me too, and it's just we're thinking the same guy.
Yeah. You know,
and it's greater than 0 and less than 2.
I think one of these guys is going to transfer. Coach, the other thing is part of the pregame. I think where we have to give Lincoln Riley credit, he's getting killed a little bit, you know, in the media this morning with his red zone play calling, and I think it's fair. But I think where he needs to get some credit is his willingness to stick with the run. Remember what we talked about pregame was, you know, you're sort of going into the strength of that UCLA defense. Is he going to abandon it? Is he going to get spooked? Last night, he stuck with it. Woody Marks was a bell cow. Joyner came in. Had some great runs. So credit to Lincoln Riley for staying balanced. It took more off of Maeva's plate, and I think it enabled that UCLA defense to have to stay honest more. So even if Maeva wasn't perfect with accuracy or wasn't perfect in terms of speed of progression, there was still an opportunity to be successful as a result. So I thought that was some nice balance there.
The good plus to it, too, also is that Woody Marks had 4.2 yards of carry, so he always kept him ahead of the stick.
Yeah. I mean, there was nothing. It wasn't sort of spectacular, but it was solid, as always. And credit to Woody Marks for gutting it out. You can tell that he's been hurt the last few weeks. He's stayed down now 2 consecutive games, and, you know, he wants to finish out this season the right way. So, but credit to Woody Marks, who's been really the MVP of this team all year and really the warrior. Will, I'm going to close it out with you. Any closing thoughts for Bruin Nation on the outcome of this game and where we think about going next week against Fresno State? You know, the state of Bruin Nation for Will the Thrill Decker.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of laid it out, man. I want to be my typical optimistic self. There's just not a lot to go off, if I'm being frankly honest. There's a lot of work to do if UCLA wants to get back to being a competent program. You know, I think we've always envisioned UCLA being that kind of school that, you know, Michigan State was in the 2010s with Mark D'Antonio, or like Oklahoma State, where it's like you're not necessarily a powerhouse school, but you're like a top 20, top 25 school. Every 3 or 4 years, you got a chance to maybe win the conference, go to the playoffs. I think that is the goal with that. So if they want to get there, man, it's going to take a lot of work. I'm happy they're already working in the portal, I guess, is a positive, because they're going to need a lot of help next year if they want to be any semblance of a team that's destined to, you know, get out of this rut and get back to a bowl game. So the work starts now for next year. That's all I got to say for that.
No, love it, Will, and I think you're absolutely spot on. Coach, any closing thoughts on to the Trojan family? Anything else you'd like to jump in on the SEC? You know,
man. So closing thoughts. One is we need to report UCLA because the portal isn't open yet. So I don't know how to recruit the portal already. So let's get that over to the NCAA right away. But no, the second one is it's interesting, right? Because this year we were playoff or bust, and then now we're handcuffed by a contract. But there still is some positive from the players that you see. Like, they didn't quit. Like last year's Victory Bell game, they quit. You know what I mean? There was no quit. So I'm kind of positive going into this. I'm not on the inside, so I don't know where the problems are. I can only I'm seeing from a 10,000-foot view. I'm only seeing on Saturdays, you know what I mean? So I wish I knew what the problems were. But we just have to just take that fourth quarter and carry it over. That's the only way I can see problems going forward. We can't regress next year, right? Regressing next year means a losing season. right? And then Will is throwing it in our face because the Victory Bell's going back on vacation. So we can't let the Victory Bell go back on vacation. So definitely, you asked me one more. SEC. Oh yeah, I'm just happy Colorado's not going to the playoff. We don't have to listen to that.
Well,
anymore.
not yet. We're not out of the woods yet, Coach.
Big
It's a
12 ain't
four-way
make-
tie.
Big 12 ain't
Four-way
making
tie
it.
for the Big 12. So it's going to get interesting.
Big 12 ain't making it. I don't see a Big 12 team getting in.
Well, they have an automatic bid though. So
that automatic bid was actually a myth. Not true.
what do you mean?
I'll explain it to you. So I saw it the other day that
I think he's saying the champion of the Big 12 gets an automatic bid to the playoffs.
Yeah, the champion of the Big 12, it's an automatic bid, Coach. It's contractually an automatic bid.
I saw some stuff where it says the Big 12 can't make it. They could get left out.
They might not get a bye, but they're in for sure, 100%. You can bet the house on that.
All right. Well, I don't want the Big 12 to make it because they suck. So that is interesting. I know. Real quick. I'm sorry. That is interesting. So the SEC, which I predicted is not going to be as powerful or dominant anymore. You're welcome. And everybody thought I was crazy. So where does it go now? Does the Big 10 get 4 teams? Where does it go?
Well, I think the Big 10 is absolutely going to get 4. And then the question is, does the SEC get 4 with a 3-loss team? Or does the perhaps, Coach, to our earlier conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I know we're digressing, so we'll wrap up soon, is the ACC might get a second team. This could be a world. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, well, gentlemen, please, Thriller.
My last and closing point. So if you are UCLA, the only thing that's got you feeling optimistic is this guy across town, the coach of USC, $100 million deal. This guy was talking about bringing USC, the mecca of football, coming back. And the dude's got a worse record right now as it stands than Lane Kiffin did when he got fired on the tarmac, at least from a win percentage standpoint. Frankly, UCLA was not a good team. We can stand up and say that. The fact that you guys barely won 19-13 with the coaching staff that all the money could buy and all the resources in the world, we held our own. I can say that. You guys got so much areas to grow and figure out USC that this makes me feel a little bit better on that. So our own program is going to have its ruts and its disappointments, but my God, USC, it's time. Lincoln Riley, I know you're saying the same thing behind the scenes, Ro. We got to see
it in public. I'm saying fire.
We all are. Yeah.
We got to see it.
Yeah.
Well, that's my last point.
There we go. Thrill. I love it. That was you see how astute Will is that Will went with the misery loves company line right there. That's the genius of Will the Thrill Decker right there. But totally agree. So for one week, a year, we got together, guys. It's always special having all of us together. Coach, I'll see you tomorrow for USC Notre Dame. Thrill, I'll see you tomorrow, day after, for the preview with Fresno State. We'll probably have Wayne on, but it's always special for the worlds to collide. Gentlemen, thank you so much as always. And to our fans, thank you for joining us, where only the LA Football Network can give you this integrated, holistic experience on the Victory Bell. Until next year, gentlemen, take care. God bless, and we'll see you soon.
Oh, I need to end it. Sorry.
Yeah.